first, good morning.
Morning, Robert.
And are you a coffee guy?
I am definitely a coffee guy.
Okay, yeah. I tell you what, man, I'm on about. I think I'm on my third cup this morning, and it's as good as the first today.
I love it. I'm on cup number 2, so I'm just trying to catch up to you, I think.
Hey, how about this? I mean, there's a lot of things we can look at 2020, and we can look at this 2020-21, sports year in college athletics, and we can thumb our nose at and say, "Oh God, that's terrible." I'm kind of wondering though, deep down, especially since there's no in-person recruiting, you and your staff can't go watch, junior and high school soccer matches. You can't go visit kids in the home. You can't have them come visit you in person on campus. So all your recruiting's virtual. With that said, is it a little bit of a positive for you and your players, the fact that the season is going to stretch out like this? Because everybody, I mean, the most fun is the games. The most fun is the matches.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, going into the fall, I wouldn't have said that. I would have said let's play our full season and do what we always do, right? But with the way things have played out and the uncertainty and all the changes, I think having some real games that count towards NCAA tournament qualification, I think having that to look forward to is great for us. I know it's great for our kids, just from the mental standpoint of getting to do what they love and compete and all the work they put in. So, yeah, as we got through the fall season, we started to think about the spring and started working on putting a schedule together. We just weren't really sure how I felt about it, to be honest. But now that we're back after the Christmas break, it's awesome. We get to play some real games against other good teams and hopefully have a really good spring season and get ourselves into the NCAA championship in April. So yeah, it's actually a really exciting time for us.
Yeah, and you know what? Plenty of lead up. I mean, you get the girls back, the team back from the break, and it's not like you have to turn around in 2 weeks and have a team match ready. You're going to open on Sunday, February 28th with Little Rock. It's very much a regional schedule to start off with. You get 4 more home matches in Stillwater, including 2 that you would circle in any year. Bedlam at home. I mean, that's always going to be circled. And I got to ask you, how'd you get the Fighting Irish to decide they wanted to fly down to Oklahoma and play at your stadium, Neil Patterson in Stillwater?
Yeah, it's the way the spring came together was interesting. Obviously we were looking at regional games and, not traveling a whole lot for budget and COVID reasons. We wanted to stay, within this region. So the other thing we had to balance or try to balance was coming out of the fall, how did we look for qualification for the NCAA tournament? In a normal year, finishing third in the league and 6-2-1 in the conference, you're pretty much a shoo-in to get into the NCAAs. But our tournament's been reduced this year from 64 to 48 teams. So a lot of at-large bids have gone away. So we decided we needed to play some teams that would help our resume if we beat them, and but we also were very conscious that we couldn't overload the schedule because we need to get some wins. So we think we got a good balance of both those things. On paper, it's probably a little bit harder schedule than we would have liked because we do feel like we're in a good spot for qualification. And if we won, if we play 7 games and won 5 or 6 of them or 7 of them, we felt like we'd be a shoo-in for the NCAAs. But, at the same time, our options to play teams were limited. Some conferences are playing conference-only games. Everybody's limited to regional games for the most part. So, the options on who we could play was limited. So we're excited. And, when you look at the home slate, for sure, Bedlam Part 2 jumps out at you as always. And we're really excited that OU agreed to come up and play us and kind of keep on that home schedule with those guys. So that's exciting for us and our kids and for their program. And, you asked about Notre Dame. It was interesting. They reached out to Karen. Karen does a lot of our scheduling, and their coach reached out and asked if we'd like to play this spring. And, Karen, of course, said, if you want to come to Stillwater, we'll play you. And they did. They wanted to come down and play us. So I think what they're doing is they're trying to position themselves to get into the NCAA tournament. And so coming to Stillwater and beating a team that is either in or maybe on the bubble would look great for their resume. So, yeah, they whenever they called, it was a tougher game than we probably ideally needed from our standpoint. But to play Notre Dame at home in Stillwater for our kids and our program, there's no way we were turning that down. Robert, you and I have had that conversation many times when we get a team like Florida or Florida State or USC or Penn State and they want to do it home and home, we play them. We don't even hesitate. So we're excited about that game.
Are you going back to Notre Dame?
No, they just wanted.
It's just
the
a
game,
one game.
Yeah, they just they didn't ask about a return or guarantee. They just basically said we want to come play. We said come on.
How much do you think Neil Patterson Stadium had to do with it? Because I think there was a real buzz last year and the year before about your facility, and I saw on paper where a number of coaches, most of them in the Big 12, but some others that said, hey, this is maybe the top facility in women's soccer. We wanted to bring our team in and see it.
Yeah, I certainly think it helps. I think the level that our program's been at consistently for the last 10, 15 years is going to attract some teams to want to play us that maybe in the past didn't. Stillwater's not always a destination for those teams when they're looking at their away trips, but I do think having Neil Patterson Stadium makes it more appealing because you get to play a top team on one of the best stadiums in the country, or if not the best stadium in the country for women's college soccer. And I mean, yeah, I think that kind of seals the deal for some. So, if we were playing out on a bumpy grass field or a turf field or something, that might not be as appealing to some people. So I think all those things help. And, yeah, we're excited. It's a really good schedule, and to finish at home against Notre Dame and, no matter what happens as far as NCAA goes, I mean, what a game for our kids and our fans. So we're really fired up for that one.
Well, again, you look at it, and you've already kind of talked about what you think you need to do as far as the fall schedule to get in.
Yeah, it's we wanted to win the Big 12 this fall, and that was our goal. We finished third, a little bit better because our home game with TCU, who ended up winning the league, we had them 1-0 with 3 minutes left. If we hold on and win that game, then we win the league. So we were really close. So we were happy, I guess, with how we played this fall. And although we didn't meet our goal of winning the league, but we did put ourselves in a really good spot for NCAA qualification. Like I said, if it was a 64-team tournament in April, I would be sitting here saying, I think we're pretty much in, unless we just collapse in the spring. But
right.
Because it's a 48-team tournament, I think we probably have some work to do. I think we need to have a good spring season, win as many of those games as possible, and hopefully come April when the committee are looking at what we did in the fall and the spring, they're going to say, yeah, that's a good team. They've got good wins, and they deserve to be in the tournament. And so hopefully this schedule allows us the opportunity to do that.
What kind of feedback have you had so far? And I know it's just been a few, actually, I guess today's second day of classes. But what kind of feedback have you had from your players about, just a change in routine? And like I said, I mean, I would think they'd be fired up because normally they come back for the spring. They know they're going to have a spring soccer, somewhat similar. It's an off season, and it's kind of, I mean, everything's important, but it's not as ramped up as obviously your regular season in the fall. What kind of feedback are you getting from the players on what the routine is?
Yeah, it's interesting. As they left, golly, going back to, last November, late November, they went home and didn't come back. And, what we stress to them is usually we send them a workout program, and like everybody does, and ask them to, keep yourself going, stay in good shape, take care of your body. And when you get back in January, we can kind of build you up slowly and have a good spring season. Well, that changed. This year it was, here's your workout and you need to do it. Because if you come back in January and you're not ready to roll, first of all, our team's not going to be good enough and ready to play. And secondly, you're going to be struggling to get on the field because somebody else is going to come back fit. So the winter conditioning packet became more important. than it might have been in years past. And that was the first thing. The second thing they as kids they thought about is, are we going to have a second preseason? And of course we can't do that. So that's what their mind goes to, like, oh my gosh, we have another preseason, but they don't. What we have is 5 weeks to build them up gradually, and hopefully by end of February, beginning of March, they're close to being at their ideal level that they were at last September, October. So it's definitely different. I haven't really talked to them a whole lot since they've been back because they're in their testing protocol right now. They tested Monday, they tested today, and they'll test Friday, and then all being well, we'll start training with them next Tuesday. So haven't really talked to them a whole lot since they've been back, but that was the feedback. As we talked about the spring season on Zoom and whatnot, it was, oh my gosh, I better train harder than I normally do during the Christmas break. And then secondly was, does this mean 2 preseasons or how's that going to work? Those were their main concerns.
You have, I believe this. I mean, I know you have the same situation that you can't do any in-person recruiting, and
Yep.
I wanted to ask you about that. I believe you have the same situation too, where seniors can come back for another year if they want, right?
Yeah, that's right. Both things are correct. Our recruiting dead period's in place till mid-April, and then it'll be evaluated, I'm sure, probably in March sometime. They'll probably take a look at everything and decide if they want to, change that or do away with it or extend it. So we're kind of in limbo like everybody else there. So that's throwing up some recruiting challenges. But, like everybody else, you adjust to it and you figure out ways to get it done. We use a lot more video than we used to evaluate, and a lot more Zoom calls and a lot more phone calls with recruits trying to, talk them into coming to OSU. So that's been different. And then, the senior deal is the same for us. I guess they call them super seniors. They can come back for their super senior year if they want to. And
they don't count, right? They won't count next year against your overall limit.
That's right. So we have, I believe, I want to say 6 seniors, and any of them who come back, whatever aid they were on this year, they will get next year. And it will not count against our equivalency limit of 14 scholarships, because otherwise we would be over because, of course, we've already signed the next incoming class. So I think that was a great thing that the NCAA did for those kids. It's not often we praise the NCAA for the decision, but I think that was a great one. And our administration, who are basically saying the NCAA made it allowable, and each school has to decide how they want to handle it. And Coach Holder and Chad immediately were like, well, it's the right thing to do for these kids. We're going to find a way to make that happen for any kid that wants to come back. So the feedback we've had right now, we're in the process, as you would imagine, of speaking to all these kids about school and their future careers and everything. And, probably won't go into detail right now on individuals, but I would say the majority of our group intend to be back next fall, which, of course, from our standpoint is fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say that's and then I'm basing everything I know based on what I know is going to happen in football. Everybody gets an extra year, but that after that initial year where you have the super seniors and the limit's waived, the limit goes back in after that. Now with your junior and sophomore and freshman classes eventually are going to be in a little bit of a balancing act between how many kids want to come back and how many kids you can recruit, which is going to get interesting for every sport.
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. We right now when everything went into lockdown recruiting wise, we were recruiting our 2022 class, so the juniors, and we basically, as we were recruiting, we might have been trying to bring in 5 because maybe that's how much aid we had available outgoing. So trying to project ahead, we thought, okay, we can bring in 5. Well, as soon as this rule changed for the super seniors, and then the next group coming through, we had to sit down with our juniors and ask them, listen, we know you can't give us 100% answer, but what's your intention? Would you intend to come back for that 5th year? And it's a very small class for us. I think we only have 2 kids on aid that year, and both of them let us know their intention at this time was to come back and play that additional year. And so we went from recruiting 5 kids to maybe recruiting 3 kids in that class.
Yeah.
And then we had the same conversation, and it gets a little bit harder because now you're asking kids to project 3 years out what they intend to do with that extra year. But we at least had that conversation so we can look ahead and try to figure out how much aid we might have available. So it's, again, it definitely is. It changed recruiting. It made it a little more difficult, but I still think the NCAA did the right thing there because, you know, these kids, that even though we're getting a season in, it's not what they signed up for, you know, and to give them the opportunity to have a real season on the back end, I think is great.
All right, Colin Carmichael with us, Cowgirls soccer coach, and we're talking, folks, about a lot of things that are, I mean, we've never asked these questions before because, quite frankly, they've never been, you know, they've never been, there's never been a reason to ask them. I'm going to get down to one last thing with you, Colin, and you know, you and Karen and your staff, you guys have had great overall success. Year to year, this program has been consistently good. And part of that is, even though we maybe done one interview with you in the spring, I know how hard you guys have worked in the spring, and that's where a lot of your development comes from within your roster. That you're not in such a pressure to win every match. You've got a lot of practices. You can do some things in the spring matches that you probably wouldn't take a chance on in the fall when it's your regular season. I'm really this is my question I'm wondering about, because you won't have that typical spring. How much, I mean, you know, will you try within maybe some of these matches to go a little deeper on your roster to get some of those kids' faces and get them out there and use some of these matches when it's appropriate to develop?
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's one of the, I wouldn't say negatives, but it's one of the challenges that we're faced with, you know, by playing a real fall and a real spring schedule. There's no question we need to win every one of these games if we can, because, you know, we owe it to our kids. We want to play in the NCAA tournament. And that does limit the opportunity to give kids chances to show what they can do in games. So what we did, and it was the same in the fall, you know, a lot of times, and I think we had this conversation in the fall, Robert, where a lot of times our non-conference games, we'll expand our bench. We'll play 7-8 kids off the bench to see, you know, let's see what they can do. Well, that opportunity went away, especially for those younger players. And so we've had conversations with them about that exact thing. We feel terrible that they haven't had the opportunity. We're asking them to train and hopefully develop and practice, but they're not getting the opportunity in games that they normally would as a freshman. But what we have stressed is the good news is if it doesn't go your way this year and you don't get the minutes you wanted, you do get that extra year back on the back end. And so if your mentality can be, this is a developmental year for me, I get basically a free year to train, get stronger, get faster, get better, learn about college soccer, well, then I've still got 4 more years to actually compete and get to play. So we've tried to, you know, push that as a positive. But at the same time, it's hard. All these kids want to play. We got about 30 kids on the roster, and every single one of them wants to play soccer. They want to compete. And not getting to play them minutes in the spring kind of hurts a little bit with the mentality of those kids. It's hard to keep them blocked in. But, you know, that's our job as coaches. We'll do our best to make them feel important and make them feel part of it, even though they might not be getting the minutes that they would on a normal year. So we're going into the spring just like we did the fall. We're going to set up each game to try to win. If that means playing 14, 15 kids, great. If that means we can get to 17, 18 and all those kids can help us win, we'll do it. But, yeah, you're right. Some of the opportunities to play for those fringe kids is kind of gone away.
That's a great way to look at it. And I know that, you guys had I thought had a tremendous fall based on everything you were battling both on and off the pitch, and now get ready for the spring with at least kind of the experience. I mean, you know what it's like to play in the face of COVID-19, and your girls were tremendously responsible. So I trust they'll be that way for you as well during the spring. I'm looking forward to it. I think to me it feels more natural to have a soccer championship in May when the weather's going to be kind of nice than it is when they've played that. It's almost like soccer's the Frozen Four, just like hockey when they
I
play
know.
it. I mean, how many
Well,
times have we tuned in and seen the finals? And I feel sorry for the kids out there in shorts, whether it's the men's or the women's soccer. Even though they're in North Carolina, it looks like they're freezing their butts off.
well, our committee keeps awarding the bids to North Carolina and places up north. You know, they had Kansas City on the men's side a few years ago in December. You know, I always wonder, can we not find a home in Florida or Southern California or even Texas, you know, and let's make that our home. But I'm sure that's been talked about at those levels. But yeah, I'm with you. You know, there's a lot of changes this spring, and I'll sit down in May once it's all done and dusted, and I'm sure there'll be some things I loved about it and some things I didn't like. But one of them, I think, will be the weather. If we do get to play in an NCAA tournament, hopefully we get to experience some nice weather games. And I'll tell you right now, one of the negatives is going to be the wind. We play some spring games, scrimmage games here in Oklahoma, and sometimes it's 35-mile-an-hour wind blowing, and it kind of changes the game. So I'm going to be curious to see how that affects everything as well.
Well, hopefully more times it'll be a crosswind, because there's nothing I feel sorry for when there's a decided wind advantage and it's your pitch is north south, and yeah, I just seen it blow west to east, and that makes it equal. But I've seen halves in soccer that, yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you're going against a 25, 30 mile per hour wind. So
Yeah, for sure.
yep. All right, hey Colin, I appreciate it again. Good luck. I think it's going to be fun, because I think soccer's naturally a spring sport. Not that it hadn't been good in the fall, but I think this is going to be fun. I think you may develop some new fans too that will be on campus and be looking for things to do, and hopefully things will get better where we can have bigger crowds and let more people be involved. So again, good luck.
Thanks, Robert. Looking forward to it.
All right, Colin Carmichael on Notre Dame coming to Stillwater.